this area again restricted to public because it's a very fragile area, and especially because of this wall, for example. Some light, where you can read remains of the cemetery of the Innocents deposited here in April 1786. So that's the first transfers of bones that happened here in the catacombs. And right here, and actually the whole place here, it's called the crypt of the Sacellum. And here you have what we call the altar. And here we need some light to show you some archives picture, because they used to hold Catholic masses here every year. So they decided to stop those masses for a reason in the 70s. It's because the place was collapsing, and that's why the pillars, they seem more new than the rest, because they had to put it in the 70s to avoid collapses here.
So they didn't start doing once they
started since well, they always had the little masses. It was more like how do you say that, rituals since they created ossuary to respect the bones, the remains, to let them in peace and everything. But then they opened the mass to the public when they opened the site to the public, so 1809, and then they had to stop the masses in 1970. They held masses for some years. And here, well, on the ground, you can see those lights. They are different from the rest. They're warmer. It's because they're trying to see if the water light is better for the rock and the bird. It's avoiding the rocks. And it's working, so that's great. And it's also better for the tool. And here you have one of the most famous walls of the ossuary, because you have two entire cross on each side, and no skulls missing, almost missing. That's very good. That's a new that's there already once. But you can see the workers when they decided to build the wall, they didn't respect what Elecard was truly wanted to, which was putting some stones at the base to consolidate the whole thing. And you can see they decided to put all of that cement to consolidate, and it's not aesthetic, and they didn't make a real shape like compared to the rest of the wall. You always have a shape or something artistic. Here it's just an amount of skulls and tibias in weird form. Just this one, for example, they're kind of falling to us dangerously. Well, those ones, they're going to fall in a few years. We can't do anything about it because in the catacombs, well, there's some restrictions because it's a museum, so you can't touch the bones, you can't really put any treatment to the bones, so it's just the natural cycle of those walls to fall. And they've been the catacombs, especially the ossuary. You had an illegal entrance in 2009, and some people, they decided to destroy the walls with bars and things like that on almost 1 kilometer, so that's a lot. And it was terrible and very difficult to reconstruct everything. Here I just wanted to show you that plate because you're not really supposed to show that, but it can be interesting. Maybe you saw there is some skulls that are broken and everything because of the fact that they fell from 20 meters, but also because of the time, the weight of the walls and everything. So here they're stocking the good-looking skulls. when they're reconstructing the walls, they replace sometimes the skulls. Like for example, you will see, especially on this part, this is one of the oldest one. You can see some skulls. They're being crushed by the weight of the wall, so they have to replace those skulls. Almost 5 years. And here you have the first monument Erika de Curie created in the ossuary. It's called the sepulchral lamp. You can stand in the back if you want to take some pictures. So again, it's a French word because the sepulchral lamp, you're supposed to have a big candle on that little basin, and it's supposed to look after the dead. But they chose the most wet area of the site, which wasn't very clever, and so it became a little basin like this. And if you want to see the effect of the white light coupled with humidity on the bones, you can go on the corner there and you will see the moss, it's not even green, it's becoming black. And that's why they're really trying to change all of the lamps because it's really affecting the bones.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So stick to the light. Mm-hmm.
What's that? Sorry.
And here the speciality of Erika actually, this big pillar. So it was supposed to be just a pillar of consolidation, just like the altar we saw before. And the second one you're going to see, that's just supposed to be consolidation. But Erika de Curie really wanted to turn it into art. And here it's a very well-known pillar. It's called the pillar of the memento. Because of the philosophy of the memento mori, in Latin it's more or less remember that you will die. And they kind of put that philosophy here in this place, but the fact we all equal in the front of them. And that was something totally new in France because you really had that difference between the rich one and the poor ones. And with that philosophy, they really wanted to bring this equality thing in France and in the content, not only about their life above as revolutionaries and everything, like we're all equal, even the king, blah blah blah, but also in front of them. That's why it's so linked to the French Revolution. But the ideal. So this is the second altar. And this one is called Gilbert's tomb. So it's not a real tomb, the one that was has been very clear. But it was in remember the poet Gilbert was very well known at this time. And again, you can see on both sides, so silence your mortals and you wealthy silence too. So everyone silence, everyone equal. Something interesting. Maybe you've noticed those seats. There were also the first place we were here, and they're here. So today we don't have kids, but when we have kids, most of the time they're saying and they're noticing it's looking like toilet seats. And we have a theory about that, is that most of the workers that worked in the catacombs at that time, in the ossuary, they were anarchists. And they knew that those seats, they were supposed to be meant for the wealth ones. So maybe they decided to do this shape in purpose because they knew it was going to be for the great ones. So we're trying to get some testimonies in the archives, but since they weren't really going to school, it's very difficult to have some real written things. But maybe one day we'll find something to find the truth about that very weird shape. So here again, you have the two colors, black and white, but this time it's on a cross. And again, it was just supposed to be a pillar of consolidation, but I thought that you wanted to do something else. So this was the last VIP part. Do you have any question? Since we're just 5 of us. No? Okay, great. Well, if you want to see something scary, right here you have some hand marks on the door, and it happened after Halloween, and we don't have any idea why there's marks on the door. Like maybe just a joke, or maybe someone really tried very hard to get out of here. That's the wall we fell a few months ago, and they decided to work on it also with a new method this time, no more nothing. And you can see this one is pretty well clear and good looking compared to the others with cement. And they didn't bring back the cheetahs to the area there. That's weird. Okay. Well, I brought you to this place because usually I'm asking people to look at this dark alley that seems no end. Just to try to feel, to imagine what Philibert Asper saw at his last moment. Because we're going to talk about Philibert Asper, one of the most famous ghosts in Paris. Have you heard of him already a bit? No? Well, Philibert Asper, he was the guardian of the catacombs. He was the only one to have the keys, and he spent his day alone, waiting for people, and he was a bit depressive and alcoholic. And one day, he heard that some monks, they were hiding some chartreuse. So, don't know if my pronunciation is right. That's why I'm going to show you a little picture of that very well-known and delicious French alcohol. It's the green one. So he knew that they were hiding a lot of chartreuse in their basement. And he knew that that basement was linked to the catacombs with tunnels. So he was like, hey, I'm the one who got the keys for the catacombs. So I can sneak out for 2 hours, pick up some bottles, then I'm coming back to my post and no one will see nothing. That was a great idea, but he had no map and just one little candle. So of course, it was his way. And at the time, they didn't pay attention to the workers. They were like, okay, the guy just quit the post, let's take someone else, and no researches. But then, 11 years after, some inspectors that were working in the tunnels, and they found a dead body. So that was very weird. And even more weird, he had a belt, and on that belt he had the ancient keys of the catacombs. So they were like, oh shit, that's the guy who quit the post 11 years ago. Oops. So they decided to make him an homage plaque to remember him. So this one here. Basically you have in the memory of Philibert Asper, who got lost in this quarry a 3rd November, blah 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 blah. So that's for the ancient story. But the cataphiles, they heard about that story and were in France, so they decided to set a tradition. And now every 3rd November they're going to drink chartreuse on the tomb of Philibert Asper. So you will know that if you're in France the 3rd November, you have 20-30 punks getting drunk on chartreuse underneath it. That's normal. It's a cataphile tradition. forgot to use someone. So here, get back to the light. You can see there is two different colors. Because you have here the original sentence written by the king in this time. It was the remains of the king and it was to remember the events of La Commune. La Commune was an anarchist riot that happened in Paris, led by Louis Michel, before, and well, when the anarchists they saw that they were mad, and they decided to put another sentence, which was martyrs of Church Saint Laurent, who violated here the king saw that modification, he was mad too, and decided to put back again the original sentence. That's why you have the two colors. The three little monuments we saw, they were made to commemorate the events that happened in the catacombs during the French Revolution. The fights that happened in the catacombs. Because yes, you had some fights in the catacombs, and actually the King Louis XVI decided to expose the body of the revolutionaries in the catacombs for a few days to show an example. So those three monuments that were made for that. But if you looking on the internet, for example, for some drawings of those fights, you will easily find big drawings of 500 soldiers fighting with giant swords and everything. Of course, you can see the space we have. It wasn't like that, but we in France, we like to exaggerate things, especially about fights. But you have to know that it happened in places like this, so not that much space. I had another question for you. Have you heard of the... Well, you know that French history is all about riot and revolution. Have you heard of the student riot of May 68? It's not very famous. Well, it was a student riot during the Peace and Love movement. And the interesting thing is that the three main schools at the time, they had their own accesses to the catacombs. So when the students they decided to start the riot, well, they weren't used to the violence of the policemen, and so to avoid the policemen, they were using those tunnels in their schools, and that's how they succeeded in avoiding the police, and that's why you had not that much people with injuries. Good idea. And sometimes people they're asking us, why didn't you French use the tunnels, the quarries during the Second World War as an advantage? And that's true. Why we didn't do that is because when the Nazis they came in Paris, on the second week they found all of the plans. So they decided to put guard at every entrance. It was impossible to do something. The great thing is that they didn't use it as an advantage because they were too afraid, they say, from ghosts or things like that. But the quarries near Paris, they were used by some organization to hold secret meetings, and especially La Résistance. It's one of the most famous, the little stone here, because it was painted several times by an artist, which is totally disrespectful, but they did it anyway. And today, that's why you have this camera surveillance here, somebody's there. we've talked about ghosts and dark and even sad stories, but Paris is the city of love, so we have at least one love story in the catacombs, and it's here. So those plaques, they were made only for the rich and the good, the wealthy ones in Paris, so they were all destroyed during the French Revolution. Except this one, and this one was made in the memory of Dame Gelin, also due to Dame Le Gros. So Dame Le Gros, one day she was working in Paris. At the same moment, you had a man, he was in jail. It's been 40 years, but he was innocent. And that man, he knew that he was going to be executed in 3 years. So he was totally desperate and he decided to write his story on a bill and he threw that bill through the bars of his dungeon. And of course, Dame Le Gros was passing by. She received the bill, she read it, and she was so touched by the man's story, she believed he was innocent, she decided to spend 3 years to get him free. And she succeeded. The interesting thing is that they couldn't saw each other during those 3 years because she was a woman, a man. But when they finally saw each other, they immediately fell in love and they get married. So this is a legend, but I hope it's true because that would be very, very. Here, this was again one of the most well known, but there was a lot of secrets over the years.
This one here?
Yes, and actually, maybe you've heard of that French rapper. I don't remember the name. He was arrested 2 years ago because he made a clip for one of his songs, and on that clip you can see a skull that seems very real, used as an ashtray. So the policemen they took a little look into that video. They made a perquisition at his home and everything, and it was revealed that it was a human skull coming from Catacombs of Paris. So he was arrested for that, and it's the only arrestation that really happened in the catacombs. Because most of the time you can't really arrest people because you don't see this sort of events. So this was kind of the exception. But even with the surveillance cameras, it's happening almost all of the time. You had that special skull that was at the end. People they used to call it the laughing skull because it had a big laugh, but it was stolen. Now it's been 6 months. No rest. Another particularity of this site that my 8 years old daughter noticed last time because she got told. Here you can see it's a lipstick mark on that skull. So that meant that someone, it was 1 year ago, someone kissed that skull. Now when she told me like the first time, I was like, no, it's not. So she was like, Mommy, there is a lipstick mark on that skull, and I was like, no, she saw something. No, it was true. Here, be careful. This is one of the most lowest parts. So the panel here is talking about the fact that we're all equal in front of death. Again, so it's showing you some great figures of French history that were buried in the catacomb. And actually, Charles Guillemot, so the first inspector of the General Commission of Quarries, was buried in the catacomb. He didn't want to, but he was buried. And here again, it was supposed to be only a consolidation pillar, but it was turned into an homage for the Pope Clement V. That's why you only have religious sentences about the Pope Clement V. It's called the pillar of the Clementines night. Here, if you're looking closely, you can see another spelling mistake. If you look into it. Yeah, that's why they will have to close the site at least for 1 week, because they made the other world. You see, it wasn't really the area we're visiting, so they could make their work even if people were getting the site. But here, there is no other entrance, like people can't get on the passage like this. So they will have to close the site for at least 2 weeks, because it's a high wall.